Hello everybody, welcome back to Let's Play Hearts of Iron 4 New Order Germany. Let us continue on where we last left off. So Italy has decided that they decided to just win. This is completely broken. No, okay, never mind. We fixed it. Excellent. Italy has decided that they hate me and they have taken over the Middle East. Which is very, very sad. Like, we won. I guess we can still, you know what? See some oil. Get that going. We have no allies in the region anymore. Steal the oil. Fuck you, Italy. Get out of here. You shitheads. And, like, once the, I'm assuming the oil crisis might finish. They might finish when, Iraq has done their war. Do we even have another field marshal? No, because we killed our last one. Yeah, so let's reassign all of our generals. The ones we assigned to go to Italy. Or to, Arabia to fight the Italians. We'll send you. We will send you. Let's get you in here. Oh, look at that. We actually have an extra general. I'm not even too sure where this extra general came from. Or you might... I don't know. Anyway. Field Marshal. No. I want to select you. We just surprisingly have an extra commander. Excellent. Did we lose 2 Field Marshals? I guess we just had like a lot of reformists in the country, a lot of reformist military leaders, which is bad because our military actually suffers pretty greatly from this. Exodus. If the Italian family boarding a plane had stared for more than 5 seconds at the scarring young man sitting in front of them, they would have noticed his haggard face and glazed expression. If they had bothered to ask him his name, he would have smiled faintly and introduced himself as Martin. Martin had expected the sweltering heat, the buzzing insects, and the threat of savage partisans. When he signed up for the Central African Army all those years ago, he'd expected to be treated differently from the others, as though his father's achievements were somehow reflected through him. Even the flattering safari trips of the juvenile Reich Commissar Mueller, although unanticipated, had not truly surprised him. No, what Martin was not prepared for was what he could never have been prepared for, the horrors of the South African War. Sleepless night in the rain as distant sounds of gunfire tore through the air, numbing marches through the jungles as his backpack dragged him down. He had watched his men die before his very eyes. Germans, Boers, Anglos, Americans, Africans, their blood all ran red through the dirt. Martin had killed many men, with his guns, with his grenades, with his knife. How he himself was still alive was nothing less than a miracle. Not once was he considered it so. Surely a miracle would have been a sudden bullet to the head. Were not for his pen pal, Martin would have surely lost his mind. The only thing that dragged him through the years, through the pain and the fear, was the knowledge that during the moments of rest, he could write a new letter to his friend. When South Africa collapsed, Martin abandoned his loyal troops, turned north and walked. He slept in ditches and drank the streams. He hunted wild animals and hid from roaming gangs of bandits. When he finally settled in Italian territory, pens found their way to his hands and he began writing again. He had not reforged that special connection. Would he have ever traveled back to the fatherland? Another faceless soldier returns. Well, luckily for him, most of Africa is now Italian territory, which is not really was intended by my part. Martin's feet touched German soil, and he felt nothing. The fatherland's embrace, once so warm and invigorating, now felt cold and clammy to the touch. Would the arms of his siblings feel the same? Would his brothers tear themselves away from his budding political career to greet him? Would his sisters turn their attention away from their husbands and their children? As for his father, the most affection that man had ever shown was the day Martin left for Africa. He had slapped his eldest on the back, nodded his approval, and returned to his bulletproof car. A wave of uneasiness washed over him as he approached the customs officer. Would anger or apathy engulf his father when he learned of Martin's return? Or had the pressure of the power changed him? His pen pal told him enough times that all the men had the potential to change. Martin would never have returned to Germany were it not for that wise man's counsel. Next, the customs officers beckoned him over. Passport? It's a fake passport, Martin replied. My real name is Martin Bormann. And I'm Richard Nixon, the customs officer said without smiling. Now hand me your passport. I didn't want to get detained by the Italians. Martin explained calmly, taking out his iron cross and handing it over. Engraved across the black metal were 3 words. Martin Bormann Jr. Hey, our son's home! When was the South African War? How long ago was that? You know what, 1970 helicopters? Would it be... Well, I guess it's not listed in here, because this actually doesn't show, world tension. When was the South African War? I don't know. That had to been like fucking a million years ago. You know what? I'm gonna pull up YouTube. YouTube will tell me. I gotta just look at my video list, and it'll tell me when I upload a video called the South African War. Oh, actually, we have 2 different things here. Resurrection. Boorman never knew what to expect from Gerald Culliford slunk into his office, smiling faintly, arms overflowing with paperwork. He was a trustworthy, loyal, and, most importantly, completely unambitious man. There were times when Boorman wondered whether that overzealous bureaucrat worked harder than him, yet the new party chancellor never wore his emotion on his sleeve. Was he about to announce a change in the weather, or the outbreak of World War III? Your son has returned, my Fuhrer. General Martin Boorman Jr. is alive and well. Oh. The chair creaked softly as Boorman leaned backwards in shock. He wasn't expecting that. Could it be true? That little Krosney alive? I had assumed him dead. The reports all said the same. He vanished out to collapse in Central Africa. Are we sure this is an imposter? He carries your son on a cross, my Fuhrer, Culliford continued. He's been detained at customs. He placed a few photographs gently on the desk. Boorman scanned them one by one in disbelief. It was him. It was Martin Jr. Krosney, Martin muttered, my Fuhrer. I said release him at once. Take him wherever he wants to go. Boorman scrunched the photos up and launched them into the bin. I don't have time to discuss failed generals, nor do I wish to meet any. Now leave me in peace. Okay. South Africa. Not South. How can I not type? What is wrong with me? South Africa. Victory. So that was episode 17. I think this is episode like 58. When actually, you know what? YouTube link. When was this? July of... It's been 8 years. 8 years this man's been missing. Boorman swaggered into the room with a flushed face. The cabinet knew why he was late, but said nothing. No one had dared question the sudden influx of female secretaries or the extensive meeting with film actresses and models. Boorman slumped to his chair and gestured at General Culliford. My Fuhrer, I've extensively briefed the Reich ministers on your preliminary grand project proposals, Culliford spoke up. The efficiency of the party chancellery was under control had skyrocketed to astonishing heights. The expansion of the Einstoß network is an interesting proposal for certain. Herman Joseph Aves replied with a cocked eyebrow. As, may I add, it's a space program. Walter Hewell grinned without a trace of irony. I still remember watching television in 62 when we sent a man to the moon. It would certainly be a good distraction for the populace, Geller muttered. He was looking more tired than usual. Of course. We were looking at the next decade of... Boorman coughed into his fist violently. He raised a glass to his lips, but hacked again, spurting water all over the table. His whole body shook with every grasping cough. Eventually, he withdrew his hand in horror. It was covered in shiny red splotches. The ex-minister rose to their feet and called for a doctor. Boorman shut them up with a pound on the table. He stared at the blood. They were right, though. He needed a doctor. Well, Boorman, nice knowing you. You're dead as hell. The Hamburg protest. It started with a clutter of angry students, pumping the air with fists and screaming meaningless slogans. According to Oprah reports delivered directly to the Fuhrer, tensions have been simmering for the universities throughout the Reich, where toxic anti-government propaganda is dripped into the ears of naive and impressionable young Germans by their fellow students and subversive academics alike. As with most student protests, the marching on Hamburg began rather pathetically and looked set to dissipate within the next day. Over time, however, the ranks of these protesters began to swell as more and more student groups joined them, carrying their cowboy signs and chanting treasonous nonsense. The protests only have grown in time, and older citizens are beginning to march down the streets in fury. The screeching masses writhing through the streets of Hamburg pose no real threat to us. The German people, especially the hot-blooded youth, need to let out some steam every once in a while. Such protests are not entirely unheard of, and while the demonstrations in Hamburg are admittedly larger than most, this is likely due to the current political climate. They are angrily accusing the party's suppression and purging, but their eventual boredom will lead them back to their studies and jobs. This is but a small thorn in our side. With any luck, these deviants will go try out a chanting in the street in due time. They're a bunch of kids. They don't know anything. They're idiots. They're morons. We don't need to worry about whatever nonsense they've got, whatever nonsense they got cooking up in their little noggins up here, little noodles. What can I spend 4 and 5 political power on? Does anybody know? Anybody watch this video? Any idea what I can spend all this political power on? I don't think there's actually anything we can spend this political power on. The movement has spread. The sun bathes their faces as they make treasonous speeches through the eruption of applause. The wind chills their bones as they march down the streets, chanting against the actions of the party and the Fuhrer. The rain trenches their huge cardboard signs as they bob up and down, informing the pedestrians of the government's faults. The daily concoction of fear, fury, and rebellion seems to course through the veins of these agitators, no matter the weather. What started as a small demonstration in Hamburg has spread throughout the Reich like a disease, infesting major cities and universities. The Fuhrer's instructor, Werner Neumann, and the Ministry of Propaganda and Public Enlightenment to completely ignore these demonstrations and focus on unifying stories instead. The party patient has its limits. If these protests reach mania, it would be foolish to continue to turn a blind eye. We once again take our chances that the protests will die down as usual. Goddamn kids, man. God dang it. Okay, 42 days on you, 42. So all we have on this. 1, 2. I mean, every project is about a month. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's probably like 9.5 months, give or take. The protest spread to Germania. May I? Reinhard Gelleld gestured as a simple brown box resting between the two men. Roman nodded nonchalantly. Gellend smiled politely, plucked out a thick African cigar, and popped it onto his mouth. "I take you for a cigar man," the Führer smiled, feigning calmness as the chief of the Ordpolice calmly took out the lighter. Borman's splotchy red hands had curled up so tightly they had turned white. Now, if these protesters are truly planning to march from Williamstrasse to the fucking Reichstag, I assume someone competent is directing them behind the scenes. You're correct, my Führer. Cigars are far more to my taste. Gell exhaled some smoke with a slight grimace. According to our reports, it is not one but many different groups contacting the upcoming demonstration in Germania. Mostly students, but not all. I write a detailed list in the document. He patted the chunky sack of papers before him with a pale hand. "This is absurd," Bormann growled. "I want the Orbital to block off all the routes to the Reichstag and to break up the protests as soon as they begin to coalesce. I will not have Williamstrasse blocked up by a petty band of miscreants." "My Führer," Gellert said hesitantly, "there may be a course of action that benefits us more. If we let them hold their little rally, they will soon run out of steam. Bold attention can be a dangerous thing. These Reichstag will be blocked off, of course, but the protest, we can either break them up, we run the risk of agitating the protesters, or, you know what? We'll give them a little bit of a chance. You can blow off some steam. You can be a little mad. Boo-hoo! I don't want to be a Nazi. Shut up! let Bormann look at this eagle. You gonna say no to that eagle? The Volkshaw blockade. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Germania, forming a grand coalition of students, workers, and subversive agents seeking to turn public sentiment against the government. They initially gathered at the Williamstrasse, gaining in size and energy until the sky was filled with shrieks and signs. Despite clear instructions that they would not be allowed to march towards the Reichstag or the Volkshaw, clusters of demonstrators began to leap over blockades and outmaneuver Orbital officers, and soon the march was proceeding as planned. Soon after breaking through the first wave of blockades, hundreds of Orbital police officers were dispatched to the crowd to violently break up the march and push the protesters back to Williamstrasse. With the help of the fists, batons, and tear gas, the rebellious crowds were soon dispersed and forced to retreat before getting anywhere close to the Reichstag. And you see, violence is always the answer. I mean, I know we'd let them just talk for a little bit, but now, clearly, violence is the answer. The Führer placed his fist in his mouth and coughed heavily. The whole body began to shake until his eyes were watering. "Fuck me," Bormann rasped, grabbing a glass of water and chugging it down. He gave a loud sigh as the final drop of water splashed into his tongue. "This cigar is fucking terrible." "You don't say," Huel muttered. Bormann's eyes sliced into him like daggers and he cleared his throat awkwardly. "Excuse me, my Führer. You're saying that the protests were larger today?" "Yes." Bormann shook his hand incredulously and ground his cigar into the glass ashtray. They continued to gather at Williamstrasse with the placards in their chants. "I guess they didn't fucking learn their lesson from yesterday. Read this." Bormann flung a piece of paper towards Hewell, who definitely caught it. "You see these pictures? Characters with my face? Down with Bormann. Fucking ingrates. Do they have any idea what I sacrificed to bring the Reich to such prosperity?" Pleaded not, Hewell sighed, rubbing his dark-rimmed glasses. "My Führer, as you know, I've been working overtime the last few weeks, sleeping and dining in my office. I think I'm going to bring some of my work home." He smiled gently. "I miss the sights of Cologne. I miss my wife's face." Yes, Bormann said dismissively. "Did you know that Gellern wants to allow the protests to rally again? He says they'll run out of energy soon enough. I don't think he should be allowed to take the streets again, but perhaps he's right. What do you think?" "You're right, my Führer. You know what? We gave him a chance. Break him up. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Break up the protest. Use live ammunition if need be." So much political power. Orbital dismantled the protest. In a matter of days, protests erupted once more in Williamstrasse, more fierce and violent than ever before. As the Orbital attempted to control the situation, the protests began to explode in the clutters of thugs who ran through the streets with fury, throwing bricks through shop windows, smashing up cars, and beating up unarmed citizens. Restaurants and government buildings alike were broken into by swarms of protesters who looted and trashed every place they entered. One shop was set on fire, that was quickly dealt with by the fire brigade. Whatever sparked the violence and chaos did not just infect the minds of the protesters. Enraged by the destruction and lacking any coherent orders, hundreds of Orbital officers began to break the Riots apart with greater intensity than ever before. Men were tackled to the ground and beaten into a bloody pulp with heavy batons. Women were dragged away from the looting by the hair, and even the peaceful protesters were being kicked in the ground by the jackboots of the Orbital officers. Desperate times called for desperate measures. Heil the Ordpolice. The Orbitals acted with unexpected zealotry, making the protests grow ever more agitated. Hey, look at that! Political power -20? I was just saying I needed something to spend my political power on. You might as well spend it on some protest. But I think that at least for right now, this is going to be a good time for us to end this episode. So if you enjoyed, thumbs up. Not enjoying, thumb down. You want to see more, subscribe, and goodbye.